Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
Hello, podcast listeners, and welcome to our 200th episode. In celebration of this milestone, we are going to offer every one of our podcast listeners an exclusive deal. So for the next couple of weeks, we've got a group starting on April 10th. We are going to offer everyone who listens to our podcast $1,000 off our group coaching program. Our next group starts April 10th. We need to get you enrolled before that. So reach out within the next week or so. Follow the link below, join a consultation with myself. Let me know you came from the podcast and you heard about the exclusive offer. And we are going to take $1,000 off just for you, just for the next week or so. So please come join this group. It's going to be fantastic. The groups are my favorite, and I hope you enjoy this podcast. And I even more hope to see you in that group. Thanks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Lee.
And I'm your host, Danny Morley.
And today, Danny and I are diving into something that I've been definitely avoiding a lot on this journey to talk about. It's something that I have been really holding in a very protective case and not wanting to allow that to come out. And it is the relationship with mom.
Big one.
Yeah.
Big one for both you and I.
Yeah.
In regards to our healing journey.
Yeah. And you and I obviously live together, and we spend a lot of time talking about the mom relationship and the mother wound. And it's very, very, very deep. And, the other day you and I were discussing, like, yes, you have your mother and you have your father. But, Rachel gives this incredible teaching of what happens when, we are conceived in the womb of your mother. That is oneness. When we are separated from source, we come into oneness with our mom. So for 9 months, we are her and she is us. And even the she goes into all about the umbilical cord and how they when they cut that off, it's like a trauma in itself because you're cutting off the child from the mother, which is oneness. And I think for me, that's why I think for all of us, the mother wound is so deep and it is so layered, and there is dad wounds, but there's nothing like the relationship that you have with your birth mother.
Nothing. Yeah. And what she goes into that teaching about is how the umbilical cord is supposed to just naturally kind of dissolve and fall off just naturally. And that's like an easing into the separation. And instead, all of humanity has this snip. So we're all carrying, probably to some degree, this trauma of separation, which is supposed to be, if we lived in a more enlightened, mystical society, right? It's supposed to be kind of like nurtured. So that wound is kind of acknowledged and worked through, and it's not so abrupt and sharp. But obviously we're not that enlightened yet, and so baby comes out, snip, and then we have to go through the pain of the separation. And yeah,
and not to mention, like, what was your mother like in the 9 months while she was carrying you? Was she experiencing a lot of trauma, sadness, depression, loneliness? Was she experiencing really a very challenging 9 months? Whatever she was going through, you were also going through, because you are one.
Yeah. When I first started this work, I was like very skeptical, very close-minded, and was like, how can you heal stuff from in the womb?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get any of that. It wasn't until I started experiencing memories, and it's not necessarily a physical memory of being inside there. It might be for some people, but just that internal intuitive knowing of, oh yeah, this began, I know where this comes from. This began when I was in the womb, and I can feel this connection with mom, and I can feel that she's feeling X, Y, and Z. And that's challenging because most mums out there don't know this work. They're not enlightened. They don't understand probably how to process their emotions, and there's a lot. I mean, 9 months is a long time to carry a being, and there's probably going to be something that happens there which your child is going to feel, something that we might call like negative.
Yeah, and like think about how most babies come into the world. I remember I was speaking once and I was talking about how my mom said that I was 2 weeks late and I just wouldn't come out. And then Fiori kind of gave me this really beautiful, deep insight as to why I didn't want to come out. And it was kind of this message of, well, if it was so rough in there, why would I want to come out in the world and experience more of that? And that really hit like super, super deep. And yeah, I mean, I watch, I had this period in my life where I watched a lot of mothers who would naturally give birth, and how, like, what a beautiful way to usher you into this planet, right? This very natural way. And we have a friend that was talking about how when she was delivering her friend's baby, and they were just playing like sound baths and like just playing all of this like music around the baby as it came into the world. Like, oh my goodness, but most of us don't experience that. Most of us experience a lot of very traumatic things when we are being ushered into the world.
And not to mention, we're taken out of our home. Well, the mother is taken out of the home and thrust into this sterile, hostile environment of a hospital, which speaks no words of life anywhere in there. Like, I remember the ancient Greeks, I think it was, their hospitals were like full of art and color and plants and music. Beautiful. Because they tried to like breathe life into, where people need to recover. And we have lost all of that. Like, you go into a hospital now, I can't wait to get out of there. I absolutely hate going to a hospital. They freak me out. They're weird. Just the energy in there is rough. And then we're being born into that.
Yeah. Not the best.
Yeah,
not the best at all.
Not the best.
Yeah. So I'd love to, take this conversation into why we're speaking about this today. I know that this is something that you and I have tried very hard. I'll just speak for myself, very hard to tread around this person. And even when in a podcast before, I always say they, and I always remember you coming up to me. You're like, "Hey, why do you say they?" And I'm like, "Well, like I'll run all these programs of like
this particular person."
Yeah, this particular person, right? Never really saying out loud like mom, and this is mom, and this is mom, and this is when mom did this. And as I've gotten, deeper into my healing journey, there is still an aspect of my inner child that wants to protect mom all the way, even though I've experienced some of the hardest things with this particular person in my life.
Yeah, and I'm in the same place. Like, most of my wounding comes from my parents' separation. And then, the way my inner child sees it is, my mom left, and it created this huge abandonment wound. And I, just like you, always so cautious to talk about it, to share about it, because I don't want to hurt her. I don't want to talk about it on here. I don't want her to think I'm like casting blame. And and part of that is like, it's so disempowering, because what happened. And that's the truth. And when we look at it and we speak about it, that's what heals. And so we're actually robbing them of the chance of seeing and taking ownership and actually being able to heal what happened if we do speak about it. It just can be very strange when we do it in a podcast, because it's like in a public setting. And I've ran into this with my own family, and people not quite understanding why I'm sharing certain things and feeling like I'm blaming. And it's the irony is I'm trying to do the opposite. I'm trying not to cast any blame. And ultimately, over the last couple of years, like really healing all of the blame. And this is something you and I have been moving through as a partnership, about seeing where we're still blaming each other
Mhm.
for how we're feeling. Like, where do I blame Ellie for what it is that I'm feeling? And we were just going through something the other day, and Ellie was walking out the door. I turned to her, and it was all around. We were trying to have a meal at the same time. Excuse me, at the same time together. And I turned around to her and I goes, "Why are you making such a big deal out of this?" And before I could finish the sentence, I realized I was the one making a big deal out of this. And I was just blaming her, like, flat out, just like, "This is all your fault. No, Danny, you're the one making a big deal out of this. You're the one who really wants to eat at the same time together, right?" And then it's the deep inner work of, okay, well, why was that showing up? And, what was I actually needing? And obviously we've done a lot of that. And healing those aspects is what frees us from the blame. It's not just, oh, I see I'm blaming, let me just stop blaming. Yes, maybe, but heal what's underneath the blame, because there's always a deeper reason.
Yes, and that's the reason why I haven't spoken about it a lot, because I actually haven't fully moved through the blame. I haven't really I'm moving through it now of allowing my inner child to blame. My inner child is, if you met me when I was younger, you'd be like, "Oh my god." Like, just so, like, I listened, I was pure.
Yeah.
Whatever you told me to do, whatever you told me to believe, I just said yes to everything. I was a very good girl in that sense. I wasn't this, like, rebel. I wasn't this, like, give the middle finger. I'm not doing what you say. I always listened to my parents, like, into my mid-20s. Like, I just listened because I didn't think that I would have another choice. And if I did even rebel a little bit, it was always met with something that was going to go against what I wanted. So, I just gave up a lot. And so for me, my inner child didn't even know that she was allowed to blame for the pain, for the trauma, for all these things that were done and caused. And so I think that's the reason why that's one layer of why I put her in a protective case, is because I won't allow myself to blame. And you and I had this really, really big discussion and conversation the other day where I blame a lot. I project a lot. I mean, I've done that my entire life. Everybody else is the issue and it's not me, right? And just blame, blame, blame. And even in our relationship, blaming you a lot. And we got deep one day and you're like, "Who are you not blaming?" And I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, "I'm not even allowing my inner child to blame mom." And remember, guys, it's not about blame mom, call the mom and go, "F you, you did this." It's allowing them to move through what they need to move through to get to deeper and deeper layers, to get to fully start to really heal everything that's in there. But when you said that to me, I instantly felt my inner child go, "Oh, I'm not allowed to do that. Like, how can I do that?" And the program my inner child runs a lot is like, "Well, she's my mom.
Yeah.
Well, she's my mom. Well, she's my mom." I mean, and you and I worked through a coaching session the other day where you also ran the program of like, "But she's my mother."
Yeah. How can I hate her?
Yeah.
Like, she's my mom. Like, she's the one that gave me all of this love.
Mhm.
How could I then turn around and hate her? And the answer to that is, when we need that love from mum still, when there's an aspect of us still showing up saying, "Hey mum, I need your love right now," then I'm never going to allow myself to feel the hatred and feel the anger and the bitterness and the pain that's in there. Because if I did that, then there's a chance that I wouldn't receive that love anymore. And when we're able to find that from within ourselves, that's when those feelings can start to be honored. And that's what it's about. It's about, as Ellie said, it's not about us. We're not saying we're trying to call up our parents and blame them. It's about allowing that wounded aspect of us, the honoring of their own feelings, that they do need to feel and process whatever's underneath the blame. Like, that pain that was in there was created maybe not by us, and whatever happened, and we need to be of honoring of those feelings, and that's
Mhm.
okay. And we learn, as you said, like, partly cultural conditioning is that, well, you can't blame your mom, you can't think anything badly of your mom because she's your mom, it's
Mhm.
your mother.
Mhm. Yeah. It wasn't until I started this work where I started to really move through how much hatred and bitterness and resentment and anger that's really in there. And, I was telling you the other day, it is so wild how we just maintain these relationships when we're closed and we're not on the path of, even though they have caused so much harm and they've caused so much trauma and damage and all these things, we're still out here having dinners with them, calling them, hanging out with them, and never addressing anything within ourselves, let alone in the relationship. And when I really started to unbox it all, I was like, oh my God, the amount of hatred that is in there towards her really surprised me. And I can feel it now, like in my gut. I've talked about this a lot. I have a lot of gut issues, insane gut issues. And every time, I remember this one time you and I were hiking and my stomach was in so much pain. I've been experiencing a lot of like inflammation and just a lot of stomach pain. I've always had it, but in these last 2 years, like more than ever. And I remember I was on a hike with you and I was just like in all of this like fury about my stomach. And you asked me this one question. And as soon as you asked me the question, what came out of my mouth was, I fucking hate her. And then I just started bawling. And, that's also for everybody at home. When you are experiencing physical pain, really feel into it and really feel what's in there, because it is screaming out things for you to listen to. And we live in a world that just tells you, oh, take Pepsid AC or go put a heating pad on it. And it's like, no, your pain is speaking to you. If you just drop into your heart and you listen, it will reveal to you what it's saying. And for me, it was all of this just pent up, packed in hatred. And there's still so much in there. There's still so much in there that I'm still allowing her to come out. And my inner child's like fully not even allowing herself to full out rage. But when she does, she rages. And then she'll go back to like being her very like quiet, small self. And then when the pain comes up again, she'll rage. So it's me just allowing her to hate and be fully bitter and be fully resentful and be very angry because what happened to you wasn't okay.
Beautiful. And by allowing, processing those feelings, that's what allows us to not stay in that blame, right? Because we don't want to stay there, right? We want to be able to heal and elevate out of it. It's not a frequency either of us want to stay in. But sometimes it might be necessary to just allow that to happen.
Yeah. Because what it does to all of us is it's literally poisoning you. When you stay so angry and resentful and bitter and all of these things, you're the one that's affecting you. Like, I was watching this video clip the other day of this celebrity, and she was basically saying how like she like hates like this particular person, and she will always hate this particular person, and that's just the end of the story. And all these people were like, yeah, F him and F this and F that. And I was like, don't you understand that when you hang on to that vibrational frequency, when you say, I'm never going to change, this is going to live within me, the only person that is going to destroy is you. Why not allow yourself to feel the hate and alchemize the hate so you don't carry that vibrational frequency anymore? It's like so backwards of what we do, but we're also not taught to learn how to process anything. But that's what it is. When you stay there, that's what kills you. When you move through it, that's what allows you to evolve and elevate.
Beautiful. Yeah. And for me, yeah, I've been doing the same thing of just holding on to a lot of this pain for no reason. Yeah. Holding on to the hatred and not wanting to allow myself to feel that in its totality. Because what if she finds out that I feel that way, and then my wounding is, well, then she won't love me and she won't come home. That's what always comes up for me. And so I have to stuff that down. And it led to all of this internalization of anger. I was never allowing myself to truly feel anger for multiple reasons. There's an aspect of me that has caused harm with anger in the past. I'm sure in past lives as well, but and so I'm kind of afraid of allowing that frequency to be fully felt. And this last year, I've been healing so much with that. And a lot of that suppressed anger is just pissed off that I lost the person that was supposed to be guiding me. And there
Mm.
was all of this like helplessness that was in there. Yeah, that hasn't fully healed. I know it came up the other day when we were
Mhm.
moving through something. It's like I feel helpless, and there's this part of me that real is like this entitled little child, like, you should be helping me, you're my mother. And then this other part of me which is like, you should be helping me, like,
Mhm.
you're my mother.
Mhm.
And it's like the same program, but it's two very different energies. One comes from this entitled little brat which needs a kick up the backside, and then this other part of me that is deeply, deeply wounded and hurt
Mhm.
by what happened and still feels to some capacity like abandoned.
Mm. Yeah. For you, it's she might not come home. For me, it's what if she feels pain?
I mean, I've got that in there too.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Just
Yeah.
speaking about yeah,
And it's so isn't that so fascinating
yeah,
how we are so quick to it's like I worry about her first before me constantly, constantly. And even when I started moving through this work, it was always this I don't want her to know that. I don't want her to hear that. So like even on social media, I'll never
yeah.
ever really speak about her straight up, right? Because I'm so afraid that if she hears that, then she's going to feel pain, then she's going to start to feel all of these emotions. It's like why are you so afraid of her to feel pain? And I think what it is I don't see her as a powerful being that can move through whatever is showing up, right? And so that's so disempowering and that's a lack of divinity that in that moment I'm disconnected from my divinity, which means that obviously I don't see the divinity in her. All I see is she's too weak, she can't handle it, she can't do this, she can't do that. And I'm still, the concept of you are not allowing the soul to evolve and to learn and to grow from whatever they experience is still a new concept for me. I'm still very like I can still feel that my programs tell me like no, you don't want them to feel pain. You don't want them. I think that's also a lot of my upbringing of like never hurting and no one causing anything and like my father was very emotionally disengaged and always trying to make everyone happy and keep the peace and all these things. So I think there's a lot of conditioning in that. And another thing is how fascinating to my programs quickly have compassion for her before it has compassion for my pain. That's been really interesting to see too. So it's
Mhm.
like sometimes I'll go deep into a wound and then quickly it'll go, yeah, but you know what? She had a really hard life and like,
Yeah,
she's really highly sensitive too and she doesn't know anything and she didn't know how to process anything. So have compassion for her, which quick that's what the nature of the programs do. Then it cuts me off from my pain and then all of a sudden I'm completely dishonoring me and then I'm focusing on her and that's what keeps me stagnant and trapped in the shits because these programs have their own consciousness and they are sneaky in that way. They will try every which corner, curve, angle to get you to not alchemize the pain that exists. And so that was really eye opening for me too. Of like when I start to have compassion for her, I'm like, wait a minute, where am I not having compassion for me right now?
yeah. I did that exact thing like a couple hours ago. All my programs did. I was going into a bunch of stuff, and I heard my mind. It was around father wound. I heard my mind start to justify. Yeah, but and then I was like, oh wow, so quick to come in and try and distract me from feeling the pain that was there.
Mm.
Um, and I was able to catch it and redirect back into my heart and the pain. But those programs will do that. And could you feel which part of you was doing that?
Yeah, the part of me that doesn't want to blame. I don't want to blame her for what I am right now. I don't want to blame her for how much of like she is has molded my shadow self in so many ways. And it's still this little girl that is waiting for mom to just love her. I can still feel her. She's still the other day,
Right.
yeah, the other day, I set a boundary a year ago, almost a year ago. And I basically said, I need to move through this very heavy chapter of my life. And I've never set a boundary before. Let me tell you something. Korean people, it's not a thing in our culture. We don't set, I don't think in any culture really, they teach you how to set boundaries. And I set this boundary and I was just like, I need this time. And so my mother and I haven't really spoken in the past year. And the other day she texted me a picture of these vegan donuts. And she was like, hey, this reminded me of you. And quickly, without my instant reaction was like, oh my God, like vegan donuts, like enjoy them for me. And then I sat with that and I was like, whoa, that's the first time you guys actually have had some kind of conversation, really, in the past year. And here you are quickly slipping into the very surface level. I could feel what my inner child was doing. That moment was like, it's mom and everything's okay. And I don't want you to know that, like, I'm moving through a lot and like everything's okay. We're okay. And I was like, oh, that was really, there it is right there. And it's still that little girl that's going, well, she's my mom and I'm still waiting for mom. And so I had to really like go into and alchemize, what was showing up for me and understanding and knowing that like from here on out, I'm not here to play surface level or have superficial conversations that dance around anything. I don't want to pretend like there's not so much heaviness and there's not so much underneath all of this. And me pretending is me allowing all of this to continue. And it's not about let's have a conversation because I need it. It's I'm just not going to choose to play this game when there's so much that is here between us that I'm moving through.
Yeah. And you've changed and grown so much from that. I think that's one of the hard parts is, we move through life, especially doing this work, you change and grow so much. And then they're looking at you from that same place that you grew up in, which is, oh, well, they're my little baby.
Yeah.
They're my baby girl, they're my daughter or my son.
Yeah.
And of course we are. Like, we're still that. But this came up with me and my mother and having conversations about everything that happened and where I'm at and where I'm going. And as I was explaining everything to her, I was saying like I don't want to be treated like a child anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm an adult, I'm 31 years old. And the way she interpreted it was I don't want to be her son, which is obviously the programs, which is very different things. Like, but that's still the attachment that's there is, oh, you're still this little boy and I need you there. And we gotta grow up and elevate out of that as a collective, because we're just going to hold people back. And I can feel, just as going through this podcast, I can feel my throat right now, my throat chakra. I can feel the constriction, and I can feel that just having this conversation, like there's a part of me which is worried, she's going to listen and think, but be hurt and think badly of me and think that I'm talking bad of her or whatever. And yeah, that it's hard to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's your mom. It's like, I think so much we just want them to be what we've always needed. And so as we heal this inner child, clearly like our inner children aren't all grown up and whole and full. We'd be at a very different place right now. We're very much working through all of this, which means that there's going to be remnants of that there until it's no longer there. And as you were talking about that, it's like, I think before this path, like when I used to get text messages like love you and miss you, be like, oh, okay, love you and miss you too. And now when I get those text messages, I just feel fucking weird. It just feels so off to me and weird to me, because how can one know what love actually is when one is not really connected to themselves? And what I've experienced so much in my life hasn't felt like love. And so that in itself has been a trip for me to get those texts or hear that. And before, what that used to make me feel, and now what it makes me feel, it's like, that's not real.
Yeah, I really thought that love was attachment, and neediness, and like just what I was reflecting on this earlier in my in the healing that I was doing with myself. It's like what I thought love was, it wasn't it.
No.
And we're on this beautiful journey of figuring out what that is. And the great thing is they say, unconditional love is shared between a mother and the children. So, you come on here, you talk about the stuff, and let's see if there's real unconditional love there. And that means, yeah, if stuff gets triggered and brought up, like, are you going to go into it?
Mhm.
And I think the other part is both of us are HSPs, right?
Mhm.
So with that, you've got all of this harmlessness and gentleness, which is just innate to our being. And we know how challenging it can be to be triggered and have to go into woundings and stuff. And that's why we have to find our power, is especially as a HSP, so that we don't just get walked all over. And, we're here to be a leader in this earth. How can I be a leader if I can't speak about the truth of what happened in my upbringing without any fear showing up?
Right.
Um, yeah.
And I think too, it's as we move out of this, these stories and all of that will also fade and dissolve, right? We'll get to a place where we no longer have to speak about all this, but this is also very much part of the process.
Hmm.
As you were speaking, like that to me, the first time it hit me that the way of harmlessness and gentleness was what was missing so much from my upbringing with my mother. Ooh, that one broke me and made me cry a lot because I didn't experience a lot of that frequency in my upbringing. And then the question is why? Like I was moving through you were actually coaching me today through a mom wound. And it's just like when I was crying, I was just saying like I'm a kid. Like I'm a child. I'm your child. Like how can you hurt a child in that way in the ways that we do? It's so mind-blowing to me. And it's very yeah, it's really painful to feel. And I think that I've seen those aspects of my shadow self when it comes to like if my dog does something wrong or like when we were fostering, we're still fostering a puppy, bless his heart. We love him. But I will start to feel this rage that I've experienced like as a kid being shot at me, right? And so I had to bring the way of harmlessness and gentleness so much when I'm experiencing this like fury or this rage or this anger, and to do my best not to aim it at anybody because that's my stuff and it's got nothing to do with this being that's bringing it up in me. And yet I experienced so much of that my whole life. And like I just I get emotional about it. It's like I'm a child. It's not and I think another thing too is like I wasn't this rebellious, out of control, talking back like kid. Like I was the opposite of that, which is like it's just so confusing and damaging to
Mm.
a kid who doesn't understand what's going on. So then here comes to the next layer of well, if this person is so angry and if this person is so rageful and they are screaming at me like I've done something wrong, then there must be something wrong with me. And I think
Of
that this
course.
is a wound that most of us carry of I have to blame me because nothing else makes sense. Nobody's walking us through what's happening. Nobody's walking us through after it's happening. There's no processing. So I learned very young that I must be the reason why this is happening.
Yep. I have the exact same thing. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people carry a similar program because, of course, a child's going to internalize it like that. Of course they are.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, when my parents separated, I thought that it was all to do with me. Like, I must have been the wrong one. I wasn't enough for my mum to love and stay. Uh, so that's what she left because I was bad for whatever reason. That came through in so many layers, like so many different layers. And I'm not at the end of it. Uh, I've definitely come a humongous way in the last couple of years, but there's still aspects of that which I've yet to find. Uh, yeah, it's challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, not an easy one. And then to see how much I've carried that with me for so long. I talk about this too of like after, the verbal abuse or whatever abuse I experienced, there is no, hey, let's talk about this. Hey, I'm sorry about this. And so I just feel like I just would carry everything. And then I'd go to my room and just for hours and hours and hours, I just swallow everything, just swallow and swallow and just keep that in, keep that in. And then here comes, when I become a teenager and adult, and there's all of these behaviors that are very self-harming, I would cut and I would punch myself, and there was a lot of bulimia and things like that. And it was just a way for me to feel pain because there was so much pain inside of me and I didn't know what to do. And the only answer that made sense to me was I have to let this out in some way. And I'm the problem. So let me just hurt me. And so you get to this place where it's like, fuck me. Like
Mm.
I'm fucking nothing. So why not just destroy myself all the way? And not even having guilt or shame for that. Like that's been something too that's been recently coming to me of like, wow, I never felt guilt or shame for the way that I hurt myself in all these different facets and forms. Never. I never felt like I shouldn't have done that and that was bad, that was wrong. It felt very justified. It felt like, yeah, you deserved it. Yeah, it's a way for me to release it. Like, how fucked
Mm.
up is that? And, Rachel gives a teaching on how women or little girls, they internalize their pain and it comes out in all these self-harming ways, and men externalize their pain. And when she said that, I was like, I put my hand up. I was like, that's me. And I didn't even know that that was a bad thing. I just took it as a way that I needed to get through what I was feeling.
Mm. And I'm sure there's many who can relate to that. I remember being at school and seeing a bunch of girls. It's funny, actually, you bring that up. A bunch of girls in my year when I was like 12, 13, 14, they all got into like a cutting phase.
Yeah.
And, not like crazy, but like small little cuts on the wrists and the knees. And like, oh, it broke my heart. I was like, what are you doing? And I remember one time I was like, maybe I should be doing that. And I like got a little knife, and I'm so fucking sensitive, so afraid of blood. I like got freaked out and started like, because I don't such a wuss like that.
I laugh because if you guys knew Danny, that would
Not
not be something that he could do.
honestly, I saw everyone was doing it. I was like, maybe I'm supposed to do this. And I think I left the room with maybe a few like scratches,
It's so funny.
So maybe if I just make it look like I cut myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is wild. That shows you how easy it is. I forgot about that. That shows you how easy it is to get programmed. That's exactly how programming works. You see your peers doing something, you're like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. So then you go away and do it to try and fit in and look cool. But I was too sensitive, so I didn't pick any of that up. But yeah.
Yeah. So
Big topic.
yeah, big top. Yeah. And massive layers. And I'm sure this is just part one of, because we're still moving through so much of it on the daily. I think it's so funny. Like most triggers come down to, for me, a mom.
Yeah, and same for me. It's like I have all of these different programs, and like they're pretty much concentrate around this one day, which is pretty wild. There's obviously there's plenty of other stuff. The stuff with my dad, the stuff with bullies, but stuff from school. School's always a big one.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is stemming from that one fateful day. It was really cool. I was going back this afternoon and kind of like working with that moment, which I do this regularly. I'll like whenever I'm called to, whenever it opens up, not like going back and forcing my way, but I'll just open my heart. And when I go there, like I'm back with that little kid. And it's so weird. Like I'm starting to be able to like remember certain like more details that were in the room. The more and more I like grow in my power, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember now like the cushions and the floral pattern that were on there, and like all things that had gone. My mind had kind of blanked out all of the little intricacies, and those memories just keep coming back more and more and more because I'm healing more, which is cool.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so everyone out there, we're here to really, it's healing for us to share and talk about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I've moved through a lot in just in this last 40 minutes being able to talk about it. So thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Because I've still got a long way. I can tell. I'm listening to the way you're sharing. I'm like, wow, she's coming from her heart so well. I'm still reserved. And actually, this is another thing that I've been working through is like the way I see myself on these podcasts and on social media, and I can feel how much I hold back. And part of it is I don't want to seem weak. So I put on this like this front, this like smile that everything's okay. And that's actually how my mum showed up. So instead of, and this is one of the things that I was working on today and like really angry about, is that when all of this kind of traumatic event happened, every time that I saw it, it was just like everything's okay. And that was just, this is just what she learned to do to deal with it. Is just to try and make me feel better. She probably thought that's what he needs right now is to feel good and feel loved. And in reality, what I really needed was someone to honor my pain and sit down and say, let's talk about what happened and how painful it was, and let's open our hearts together. Obviously, she didn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm teaching him now.
Yeah.
And obviously, this is why our souls chose this in this lifetime, is to be able to come back and learn how to do this on our own. And I often get so jealous of people who have like full families. I'm like, wow, I wonder what that was like to have like for your whole childhood, just like a family that like all like loved each other and cared for each other all the time. And yeah, it definitely changes the way that you show up in your teens, your 20s, and your 30s when you experience something, traumatic, whether that be physically, mentally, emotionally, in your childhood.
Yeah. And props to you for even, sharing that you don't want to seem weak and you don't want to look weak. Like that's the first step into the next level of you opening.
Yeah, it's constantly showing up. I just don't want to look weak. I don't want to show people that it's so weird because I do it in the coaching sessions. Like I go through all of this immense amounts of pain, and I love this work so much. I love going in. Like Ellie can vouch for me. I'm
He loves it.
constantly like finding parts of me and going in and diving deep and like having these humongous healings.
The other day we're in the car and you're like, oh my God, that trigger. It's awesome. I can go into it. I was like, what is wrong with you?
It's another part. Like I get to go. It's like a little like, it's a game, really.
Yeah, dude. I really look forward to the day that I have this enthusiasm like you do about this.
But then you pull out a camera, and I'm like, oh, okay, now you got to share all that with the world. I'm like, and then I just speak from here,
Or you go, I don't have anything to say. It's like, no,
Yeah.
dude, you do. You got a lot to say.
I've got so much to say, and I feel like I don't know what I have to say because I'm so worried about what people are going to think.
Yeah. But you're doing it.
But I'm out here. I'm speaking.
You are.
I'm alchemizing.
You are.
Appreciate everyone for listening.
Yeah.
And if you want to learn how to go into your abandonment wounds, as I mentioned at the beginning, we are doing an exclusive offer just for you podcast listeners. So if you've been listening to these podcasts and you're interested in learning this work, we have a group starting April 10th. We are taking enrollment for that now because we need to get you signed up before that. And we are doing $1,000 off exclusively for the podcast listeners. So if that's you, please follow the link below. This offer is only going to be available for a couple of weeks, probably only a week because we need to get you enrolled before that date. And yeah, sign up, do a consultation. You'll jump on a call with myself and let me know you are a avid podcast listener and you would like to take the offer of $1,000 off one of our group coaching program. Couldn't recommend it enough. This work is so powerful when we get together in oneness. Ellie and I both started this work in a group, and the groups are my favorite. I think it is so magnificent to be able to see other people move through their own pain and connect with that, and to heal in oneness, and to be led by multiple coaches. I think there's so many benefits to doing this work in a group. Couldn't recommend it enough. Jump on a call, fill out the little form, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.
And we're doing this in celebration of the 200th episode of the Master of Self University podcast, y'all. We're not just doing it because we feel
Thank
nice.
I forget to mention that?
Yeah, that's
whole
okay.
time?
This
Hilarious.
is to celebrate 200 episodes, and I have the joy of co-coaching a group class right now, and I love the group class. I love it. It's just a great energy, and everyone just dives in, and it's beautiful, and we're all in oneness. And so for anybody out there who's like, I want to do the work, do the work. What are you waiting for, y'all? We're in the age of Aquarius. It's go time. So let's go. Okay. To everyone out there, thank you so much for supporting our podcast, for riding with us all of this time. Subscribe, like, share, comment. It really helps us to do this podcast for free. And check us out at mastersofselfuniversity.com. Check out Rachel Fiori's book, The 20 Universal Ways of Oneness, on Amazon. There is also a digital course that goes along with that called The Introduction to the Universal Ways of Oneness. And join our free Discord community. It's free, FREE. Where we all share this work and we ask questions, and it's beautiful and it's great. And that's it. Until next time, we will see you guys in the Power Within class. Bye.